Just when people thought Deion Sanders was going to pull an Archie Manning, Eli Manning, he says which teams he's okay with drafting Shedeur Sanders.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I'm your host, Kevin Bohr, but today's episode is brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so that way you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. Today's episode, we're talking about Deion Sanders, which teams he'll allow Shedeur Sanders to go to, because there's rumors. There's rumors that he has a favorite team. There's rumors that there's programs he won't let him go to. We're going to talk about it, what I think about what he's saying. I'm going to tell you guys a handful of freshmen who I think could be impact players right away. And Colorado got a turf field. And do I like that? Do I not? I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. But first, let's talk about it. Deion Sanders, there were rumors a couple days ago where it was like, okay, he's at a conference and he just randomly says, we want Shedeur to go to the New York Giants. And I was like, okay, that's odd. And of course, people run with it because it's like, why wouldn't we? That's the first time, or not we, why wouldn't they? Because it's the first time Deion Sanders has really spoken out about who he's willing to let Shedeur get drafted by. Because throughout this process, there's been this notion that Deion Sanders will pull an Eli Manning, which means there's certain teams that he doesn't want to draft Shedeur. So if they do, or if they think about it, they will force a trade or sort of force their way out of it. Now, quite frankly, and he did this with Skip Bayless today, who's, I don't know if he's with ESPN Cleveland or whoever this is, but Skip Bayless' show. And he told Skip, I know where his heart is, Shedeur, that is. I know where he wants to go. That being said, he said he's okay with whoever, right? The Browns, Giants, Titans, Raiders, or Saints. He named all those teams, right? So we're getting the Browns, the Giants, the Titans, and the Saints are kind of like the name. So I think him even saying those teams, those are the teams I would view as in the mix. Now, I talked about the Giants yesterday. I don't really know if they're really in the mix for Shedeur Sanders, at least not at pick 3, because it's like, why would they sign 2 veteran quarterbacks, one of them to a multi-year deal, and then take a quarterback with the top 3 pick? Now, if you're telling me that they draft, say, I don't know, Travis Hunter, and then they trade back up into the first round and draft Shedeur later in the first round, I don't mind that, right? But I don't know if they're going Shedeur at 3. That being said, there's like this notion that people are like, okay, Deion Sanders said which teams he wants him to go to. Like, he's not going to pull an Eli. I'm promising you, I'm telling you right now, Deion Sanders, Shedeur Sanders, he said Shedeur knows who he wants to go to. They have an idea of where he's going. They have an idea of where they want him to go. And I think a lot of people are confused by the fact that they think they're just going to wait it out and see what happens, right? If Shedeur Sanders wants to go to a certain team, and that's possible, they're probably going to do everything in their power to do so. Also, Deion Sanders would never air out his dirty laundry, if you know what I mean. Like, Deion Sanders will never be the guy that says, yeah, I don't want Shedeur to go to Cleveland, right? I don't want Shedeur to go to New England or whatever it is, right? He's not going to do that, right? Does he have ideas of where he doesn't want him to go? Of course. He's already said he does, right? He knows people in the NFL. He's very connected. Obviously he was a legend of the game, but he also worked in NFL media. So he has connections there. He has connections to coaches. He has connections to every person under the sun in the NFL world. So he knows what teams are looking for. He knows how teams develop, how they don't develop. And I think he said that multiple times, that where Shedeur goes, he would prefer him to go to a place where they have a history of developing quarterbacks, right? Because at the end of the day, not many prospects have a parent, coach, or person in their life that is influential enough to sway the NFL draft. Deion Sanders is that. And although people may not like it, right? They didn't like it when LeBron James used his sort of status to have the Lakers draft his son with the 55th overall pick. Granted, Bronny's been playing quite well, dropped 39 in the G League, 17 in the NBA the other day. It's one of those things where if he has the power, if you have the power, you use it. And so Deion Sanders has the power to help control the narrative, to help control Shedeur's destiny. And as a father, coach, and that being, obviously, that's his son, right? That's what a father is. Why would he not use a little muscle, right? And I think people, whenever we heard him say it's going to be an Eli, I think people thought it was going to be like LeVar Ball status in terms of like, he says like LeVar was just outspoken, right? LeVar was loud about what he did. The Chargers, the Mannings, they were loud about Eli not wanting to go to San Diego. It was San Diego at the time. They were loud about that, right? They were like, he'll go to law school. He'll return to college. Like they were naming all these things. John Elway, he didn't want to go. I forgot who he didn't want to go to. But he was like, I'll play baseball, right? So all of these other people in the past have said, I don't want to play for this team, X team. Deion Sanders is more calculated than that, right? He knows that he wants to help his son, but he also doesn't want to damage relationships, doesn't want to damage his image, and he doesn't want to air that out, right? I promise you, or at least I could guess, I wouldn't say I could promise, but I would take a highly educated guess and say behind the scenes, he would tell people close to him, like, hey, we don't want you, Shedeur, that is, to go to this team, right? That team has a bad offensive line. They haven't developed quarterbacks. That coaching staff is on its way out, or coaching staff, that general manager, whatever it is, right? Whatever the reason is. Like there are going to be reasons out there that Deion Sanders does not want Shedeur to go to certain teams. That being said, we will never know unless somewhere down the line he airs it out, but we're not going to find out before the draft. And I think that's where people are getting confused. So that being said, which teams do I see him possibly going to? Because I think that's a fun question, right? Because he named Tennessee, Cleveland, the Giants, the Raiders, the Saints. Of those teams, I think Cam Ward is pretty much locked in at the number one pick. I don't think the Titans are going to move from there. Will Levis is terrible, and they need a replacement for Will Levis. Cam Ward is viewed as QB1 in this class by most people. I would probably go Shedeur. Granted, I've seen Shedeur play a lot more than I've seen Cam Ward play. I also think, although what Shedeur lacks in like athletic prowess or those, because Cam Ward's a little bit more of an athlete in the pocket. He also has the ability to sort of use all sorts of arm angles, and he's got the flash, right? Shedeur doesn't have that, but Shedeur's tough. He's smart, very accurate. So I like Shedeur's play style a little bit more. Obviously, he's not the tradition, or he's not the new era quarterback, the Josh Allens, Lamar Jacksons of the world, where he's going to run you over, shake a defender out of his shoes, but he can move, right? I think he's not getting enough credit for that. That being said, I think the Titans go Cam Ward. So that leaves the Browns, the Giants, which I keep saying I don't see it, the Raiders, the Jets, and the Saints. I personally, if I had to rank these teams in terms of like sense and what I like the most, I would go probably the Raiders. I don't know if they pick him at 6 though, because they just got Geno. The Saints, right? Derek Carr is going to be on his way out eventually. That franchise needs a full rebuild. I think having a quarterback like Shedeur can really, I think, can help expedite that rebuild. But they have a new head coach in Kellen Moore. Maybe he doesn't want to deal with Derek Carr, right? So, or not, at least not long term. But I like the Raiders and Saints, and then the Jets, probably 3. The Jets and the Browns, obviously they're both quarterback needy, and this is like my preference. Like if I were Shedeur Sanders, what teams would I not want to go to? The Jets have been a mess, right? Rookie head coach, same thing with the Saints, but the Jets have a longer history of failing top quarterbacks, right? Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson, Mark Sanchez, right? Aaron Rodgers, obviously they didn't draft him, but that failed miserably, right? So the Jets just are not who I would want to go to. Granted, they just signed Justin Fields, so it's like, oh, is the team that drafts Shedeur, is he going to start right away, or are they going to have a veteran quarterback on the roster? I think that's the biggest question. I wouldn't mind having a veteran quarterback guide him for the first year, but it depends on who it is, right? So I'd rather Shedeur learn from Derek Carr and Geno Smith than, say, Justin Fields or whoever the Browns are trotting out, the Deshaun Watson, right? I'm just not a big Deshaun Watson guy. And then the Giants, Jameis and Russell Wilson, I think there's a lot going on there. I think there's a lot of dynamic there. Like Russell Wilson still thinks he's an elite quarterback. Jameis Winston wants to be a starting quarterback. And so it's like, Are they going to focus on mentoring Shedeur, or are they going to sort of view him as a competition? Like, there's going to be competition, but are they going to view him as a friend or foe, if you will? So that's my stance on it. So Deion Sanders, he's not going to say out loud what he wants to happen to Shedeur in this draft. That being said, he's certainly okay with certain teams drafting him. So when we come back, we will be talking about the freshmen who I think have the best chance to make an impact right away for your Colorado Buffaloes. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Monarch Money. And let me tell you about Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. Surprising insights. They have them. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now, I budget smarter and I save more. I got a wedding coming up, right? Trying to buy a house. Life's expensive, so I got to be saving money when I can. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so that way you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. Let's talk about it. I talked about transfers yesterday who I think will make an impact. Now I'm talking about high school recruits. And I'm going to go 2 and 2, right? Colorado brings in 13 recruits, 14. And when Coach Prime brings in a high school recruit, there's a sense of, yes, you will be developed. There's a sense of, we see a future with you. But there's also a sense of, like, can you make an immediate impact? And so I'm looking at guys who are making immediate impacts, which obviously is the name of the game, the name of the segment. But these are the guys that I think will start right away or will at least be in the rotation pretty quickly here. So starting off with Chauncey Gooden, interior offense lineman, 6'4", 320. We've seen him in a lot of well-off media videos. Dude's huge. Seems like he's kind of got that alpha in him, which I like. I like that dog. I like that sort of – I like that he's a freshman, probably 17, 18 years old, and is acting like he's a 4-year veteran, right? I like that. I like that in an offensive lineman. Colorado's offensive line needs toughness, and they need help, right? So I think he's a guy who could probably start next to Jordan Seaton or on the right side, right guard. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens with him. I think he's a guy that starts, right? I know a lot of you may ask about Carday Smith. Carday Smith, to me, he looks undersized, right? And all of those well-off media videos, I know he's getting bigger. I know he's getting stronger. He looks undersized. I feel like he's a year away. Next, I really like the wide receiver class that Colorado brought in. That being said, Quentin Gibson, he calls out to me, right? He calls out to me. He's speedy. He's dynamic. I think they're going to find a way to get him on the field, right? I think they're going to – I don't know if you guys remember. TCU had a running back / receiver / do-it-all type of guy named Kevontae Turpin. He's now with the Cowboys, or I think he has been with the Cowboys. I don't know if they re-signed him. But Kevontae Turpin was one of the most electric, fast people in college football. And so Gary Patterson at the time said that each game they divvied out, I think it was 10 to 12, we'll call it, Terp touches. So like they wanted to get him the ball 10 to 12 times per game, whether that was in the rushing attack, passing attack, whatever it is, right? They want to get him the ball and let him use his speed and let him make something happen. So I think I think that's kind of the vibe you have to go with Quentin Gibson. He's really small, 5'9", 160, I think is a generous amount. He's probably gained a little bit more weight, but he's undersized, but he's so electric, so fast, right? I think the ball in his hands can lead to great things for Colorado. So I think they'll figure out a way to get him on the field. Up next, and I know a lot of you guys wanted me to go Julian Lewis. I think Julian Lewis will have an impact. I don't know if it'll be a major impact right away because I do think Caden Salter wins the job. Now, I think Caden Salter has a short leash because obviously you don't keep Julian Lewis waiting forever. But if Caden Salter gets a job and plays well, then you allow Julian Lewis to develop. So that's why he's not one of my 4. But I will say I'm liking London Merritt. right? He's a 4-star edge, IMG Academy, 6'2.5", almost 6'3", 250 as a recruit. They flipped him from Ohio State. So this guy kind of shocks the nation, flips to Ohio State, had just all around, like, does everything, right? 9 sacks in 2022, 5 sacks in 2023. Had a productive year this past season for the Ascenders at IMG. Like, I mean, just he's a guy that they have veterans, but I think they find a role for him, right? I think they find a role for him rushing the passer. I don't think he's going to be a full-time starter yet, but I do think that they find a role for him. And then lastly, we're staying on the defensive line because to me, this guy screams Chidozie Nwankwo 2.0, Christian Hudson, listed at 6'1", 280, undersized. Colorado needs some help up front. They have Jaheim Otis, right? They have a bunch of veteran Amari McNeil, Gabriel Lightfoot. They have guys. But I feel like the youngster gets in the mix there. So those are the recruits that I think could make an impact. We'll just have to wait and see if that comes to fruition. But Colorado is clearly making some moves with their freshman class. And Coach Prime has said before that he brings in guys who he knows can make an impact. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Colorado's turf field, whether I like the decision to get one or not. Let's talk about it. This episode of Locked On Bus is brought to you by our sponsors over at Nissan. We're all about the stats because numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada PRO-4X, the numbers are on an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it could quite literally carry the whole team plus the gear wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room up to 8 people, the Armada PRO-4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada PRO-4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. So take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada PRO-4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. We're chasing 8,000 subs. Let's get there, so that way we can continue to have some fun. The Colorado Buffaloes are changing tradition. They've had a grass field for what feels like forever, and they're going turf now. They're going to turf field, which opens up more opportunities for concerts and other uses of the field, but do I like the move? Not really, right? I think turf field is a little bit dangerous. It's one of those things where I feel like there's a lot of teams with injuries, but they've had grass since 1999. But here's the thing, right? Colorado practices on turf field, so I get that argument. Here's some numbers that Brian Howell presented on X, right, of Buff Zone. Some numbers. So in 2024, 93 of 134 FBS programs had artificial turf. Of the 41s who had grass field, 31 are in the South, California, or Arizona, and 50% of the 68 are Power 4. So more than half the teams with grass fields are playing the SEC or ACC, and obviously they have a little bit more manageable weather. For Colorado, the snow, the weather, the inclement stuff can make it more difficult, I guess. Colorado's used to the turf field. Something about seeing grass fields. I personally preferred grass fields when we played baseball, right? When I played baseball, I hated turf. Very different sport, obviously, on turf than grass. But Colorado made the switch. Fans are kind of iffy about it, right? I think as long as the turf is high quality, which I don't imagine Colorado's just going to rush this process and get whatever turf that they think is affordable. But as long as the turf is high quality, and there's not an increase in injuries, and they feel like they can manage better, then by all means, go for it. I do a little tradition dying, but it is what it is, right? I think of the traditions that have died recently, this is one where I'm like, it makes sense, right? It's less maintenance, first of all. You could do more with it. You could host concerts on it. And it's, I think, more like when you have snow or rain, the grass obviously gets muddy or certain parts of the field gets torn up and it doesn't look as good. So I think it'll look better. I think overall it'll hold up better, but the tradition dies a little bit. You guys comment below. Do we care? Do we not care? I would like the grass to stay, but I understand the move, right? I think it's one of those things where it's like, I get it. Doesn't mean I have to like it. So appreciate you guys for tuning in, making Locked On Buffs your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. And I will see you guys tomorrow.